There are multiple different camera settings and different options that you may have seen in the menu, but you don't really know what they mean or what they do. Well, in this video, I'm going to quickly explain them. Starting with resolution, it is simply the amount of pixels that are in your image. The more pixels, the clearer your image. 4K is clearer than 1080p, and 1080p is clearer than 720, and so on. The higher the number, the more clear your image will be. However, this clarity is not the only setting that will affect how people perceive your image. For instance, frame rate plays a huge role. If I am doing something and the frames are very slow, it is like less than 24, it is not going to look natural. Higher than 24 and it will look more and more natural. Now at a certain point it does look unnatural, just the speed of some of the movements, and it is not what we are used to in movies because we get accustomed to what we see in movies. Now the highest you usually go when recording before you start doing slow motion is 60 frames per second. Slow motion is usually starting at about 120 frames per second, but these are the different frame rates. Now let's talk about shutter speed. So shutter speed goes along with frame rates and basically is how clear each of those frames will be. I could have a really high frame rate, so there's 60 frames per second of a video, but if my shutter speed is super low, then what that means is it will have a very blurry image and will look still just not great. Having a higher shutter speed means that I am able to talk and move and it looks fairly natural. For instance, this is a very slow shutter speed, but it is still recording at 20 frames per second, just like it was earlier. But you can see that the motion blur is much higher, and this is because the times that the sensor is refreshed is a lot further apart, meaning that the images are overlapping with each other and causes a lot more motion blur. Now next is ISO. Native ISO is how sensitive your sensor is to light. You need to be careful not to have it too high, because the higher it is, the grainier your image will look. I personally tend to record at about 400 to 800 ISO just because I find that is usually the safest option, as long as you have adequate lighting. If you do not have adequate lighting and you are using too low of an ISO, the degradation of quality will still happen, but due to the image being too dark. So the next thing I want to talk about is aperture, or f-stop is basically how much the lens itself will open to allow light in. So the lower the f-stop, the wider the lens iris will open, allowing more light to come in. A benefit of this is that it will actually allow for blurrier backgrounds. Right now the lens is at f-stop of 4, which is not a lot of blur in the background. If you want one of the really nice blurs, it will generally be around 1.8, maybe in the 2 range, but it also depends on how far away you are from the background or the stuff around you. So for this purpose, it is at 4 right now. If I increase the f-stop to 13, you can see that there is a clear background. In fact, you might also notice that the background looks darker, and this is because the higher the f-stop, more the iris stays closed. So the tighter it is and the less light gets through it, which means that while I'm really lightly lit here, the background is not quite getting as much light. So it may look a little bit darker, but at the same time, it may look a little bit clearer. Now, a lot of cameras will have different settings on them, but in general, these are the common settings just because this is how a camera functions. On new Sony cameras, it might have a new AI chip that allows for smart image recognition for it to adjust the autofocus, but that is not what we're talking about here. We are talking about the ISO, the aperture, the shutter speed, frame rate, and resolution. These are common things you'll see in cameras and things that are good to know, because if you're having a problem with one thing, let's say your image is looking very stop motion-y because your shutter speed is too low, now you know what to do, how to fix it. While if you just don't know these common settings, then even if you get a brand new camera with auto smart features, maybe it just adjusts that and you don't know what it is that it's adjusting that is causing this problem, and you can't fine tune it or change the adjustment or put limits on certain things if we don't understand what they are. So this is why it is important to understand these different settings. So this has been Sabbath Tech Talks. If you would like to see some of our ministry on our main channel, the different things we're doing here at the San Antonio Baptist Association, feel free to check out our channel. And if you would like to learn more about technology through this channel, go ahead and feel free to subscribe and watch the other videos. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful day.